Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print 3D channel. Today is September 17th, and that means day 260 of the 3DP 365 project. And on today's episode, we printed out this 4-color Lucy Van Pelt from the Peanuts, so stick around. Hey everybody, welcome back, and thank you for joining me here for day 260 of the 3DP 365 project. On today's episode, we printed out this very cool 4-color Lucy Van Pelt, and our print turned out awesome. This is a very, very cool model. This is designed by Steve Solomon, and I'll put his information down in the description. And looks like he's working his way through the Peanuts characters, because recently he posted the Charlie Brown model, and that's very awesome. Because we're thinking that coming up in the month of October, we're going to do a month of Halloween prints. And if we could do a full cast of characters for It's a Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, that would be really, really awesome, fully 3D printed. So Steve, if you're watching this and you're working on the rest of those characters, not to like kind of push you a little bit, but that would be really cool to have for Halloween. But either way, Lucy turned out awesome. This is a very, very cool model. We used 4 different colors of MatterHackers Pro Series PLA. We used black, tan, blue, and black, or white, sorry. Black, white, blue, and tan. And we were gonna use the blonde color, but it really didn't match the flesh color, and I wanted to have all the characters have their own distinctive look. And Lucy's got kind of more of a pale look, so I thought the tan would look better. But Charlie Brown's kind of a little bit more pinkish color, so I might use a different color for him when I do print him, because I'm definitely going to be printing Charlie Brown, because these are some very easy to print 3D models. And they come in a bunch of different parts, which might be a little bit challenging for some printers, because even the little eyebrows and the eyes and the mouth were all little tiny prints. And once we had these downloaded from my mini factory, and I'll put the link down in the description, we separated them out by color onto the build plate. Each one of the little build plates took about 2.5 hours to 4 hours to print, depending on how big the model was. Some of the prints, like the hair with the eyes and stuff, those took about 3 hours, where the body, the little dress and the arms, and the little socks, the little blue socks at the bottom, that only took about 2.5 hours, because I used a variable infill. But I did use some different settings, or I did use the same settings, I'm sorry, for most of the other parts in general. We used 3 top layers, 3 bottom layers, 3 perimeters, and between 10 and 15% infill. And most parts are printed out between 25 and 35 millimeters per second, depending on what I was printing. For like the hair, which I printed with the eyes and everything, I printed those out at 30 millimeters per second, because I wanted to make sure these little parts, which would print first and finish first, actually turned out okay. And I could have sped it up using multiple processes, but I decided it was easier just to let it print and do its thing. That way we had some consistency, because sometimes when you speed up your print speeds, you'll change the surface texture or the surface finish of the filament you're using, depending on temperature and speed and such. And I'd seen that happen before, so I didn't want that to happen. So I didn't want to use multiple processes. And some of the filaments actually have either a glossy or a matte finish. And I know that the blue actually has a little bit more glossy finish than the tan, which really offsets the color and makes this look really cool. The assembly process itself took about 40 minutes, only because I did have to do some additional cleanup on the parts, because I did leave my settings for the first layer at 110% on the height and width, which caused a little bit of element footing. And once I saw that that was happening, I did turn those settings off for the remaining parts that I did have to print, but I did require a little bit of cleanup. And of course, there is a little bit of time involved when you're using super glue. I'm not using any of the accelerant, which I definitely want to get some of that accelerant for the super glue to dry when you're gluing the parts together. And for something like this, especially around the neck and some of these other parts, I wanted to give it enough time to dry, because I knew I'd be handling it and maybe pushing parts together and holding it and squeezing it just to make sure everything stuck together. The only real printing issue that I found as far as fit goes was with the hair and the face. And you can kind of see there is a little bit of a gap there, but it's probably just a little bit of shrinkage due to the PLA shrinkage, which does happen, because a lot of the models that Steve makes, they are pretty tight fits, so your tolerances do need to be pretty good on your printer. And I've printed a few of these from Steve. As you can see, we have Wallace and Gromit and Yogi the Bear behind us. And these are really easy to print 3D models. The total print time with all the parts took about 8 hours, so this is an easy one-day print. And actually, this wasn't the first thing we were going to print for today's episode. We were going to print this really cool recycle bin trash can, but I had a lot of issues with this model. The first thing I noticed right away while I was printing is that the extruder was moving around a lot, and it was leaving a lot of PLA ooze coming out of the extruder head when it was passing between areas because it wasn't retracting and lifting when it was moving throughout the print stage. And let me put Lucy down and I'll tell you a little bit more about this, and I can show you on the front piece here in the front of the trash can. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's really muddy in there. So what was happening was the extruder was printing two perimeters. It would retract and move and lift up and do two perimeters, but then it would drag across this perimeter here to go to this side and do it and drag back. And during that dragging sequence, it left a lot of PLA debris because there was no retraction setting being applied to that. And I think that's a setting I can change in Simplify 3D, and I do want to reprint this. The other problem I noticed with this model, in particular with this model, is that the layer at the perimeter or the wall thickness all the way around is not even. So we have four perimeters being printed on the side walls, but only single perimeters being printed on the front and back wall, which is giving it a little bit of flex. So it might be some issue with the model. But this is also a remix of the original because the gentleman who remixed it wanted to have the wheels turn on it and wanted to have not a solid top, but an actual flap type top like you would see on a recycle bin. And the other problem with that retraction issue is when it was doing all that moves, it caused some weird layer shifting. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it caused like some weird layer shifting going on during the print. So I knew I had to cancel it, but I did have another model in mind, and that was of course Lucy Van Pelt. And this print turned out awesome, and I'm super happy with the results. My gMax did a stellar job on this print with all these little parts that it printed, and I really can't wait to print Charlie Brown. And hopefully, Steve, if you're watching, keep working on that Peanuts character lineup, because we would love to do a really cool It's a Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown for Halloween. Well, that about wraps it up for day 260 of the 3DP 365 project. If you're looking for ways to support the channel, check out the affiliate links down in the description. If you make a purchase through GearBest, Amazon, or MatterHackers, it kicks a little bit back to the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny, and I really appreciate it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share those videos, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.